for more scandal sheets after the break. And now, back to the show. So she divorced Gropius in 1920, and then in 1929, she married Werfel. So they were actually living together unmarried for 9 years. He was a Czech-born poet, playwright, and novelist. In the mid-1930s, with the rise of Hitler and the Nazi state, they fled Europe for America because he was Jewish. Mm-hmm. They lived in Hollywood.
This is from the Mahler Foundation. The Werfels' home became a gathering spot for German intellectuals who fled the Nazis and settled in LA. There are photos showing Alma in front of the house in the 40s. The house, which sits on a third of an acre at the end of a cul-de-sac. Altogether, the house has more than 3,200 square feet with pitched wooden ceilings. Miles of bookshelves, a large brick patio, and a bit of history. Yeah, so it's a really lovely home that is off of the Whitley Heights area of Los Angeles. I really like that it's still there. It's a modest house with an arched kind of colonnade in the front, and it has a tiled roof. It's beautiful. It has a gate, it has walls around it. It has bougainvillea that are crawling on the drive gate. And the Mahler Foundation provides a photo of Alma and Werfel outside of the house when they bought it in 1941. So Werfel's secretary reported a characteristic experience from this period. One morning when I came to the outpost for our day's work on Bernadette, I was plunged into just such a situation. The quarrel was about the news, which were, as usual, pretty bad. Alma took the position that it could not be otherwise since the Allies, America was not in the war yet, were weaklings and degenerates. The Germans, including Hitler, supermen. Werfel did not let this nonsense pass, but Alma would not yield. The pointless quarrel went on for about 10 minutes. Then Werfel clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Let's go downstairs and work." In the middle of the narrow winding staircase, the chicken ladder, he stopped, turned around to me and said with a tinge of real sorrow, "What is one to do with a woman like that?" It sounds rather good-natured, not really, but there was not a trace of humor in his voice. He was desperate. I tried some feeble explanation. He shook his head. One just has to remember that she is an old woman. I don't feel like age is an excuse for idiocy.
Yeah, and I don't think age was her problem.
It wasn't her problem. She was an anti-Semite.
So Werfel died in 1945 after 16 years of marriage. He passed away a, quote, embittered man, which if he had to live with a screaming harpy who claimed that the Holocaust did not happen, I can kind of see how he would die embittered.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. Following his death, Alma never remarried. Thank God. She did not have a chance to get at any poor men. Sorry, that was probably a little harsh. Alma continued to live on even past Franz's death in 1945. She lived to 1964.
Oh my.
So she was...
Wait, but wasn't he younger than her? Or
he was 11 years younger than her.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I did see that he was only 54 when he died.
In the last 19 years of her life, she became obsessed with being recognized as the widow of Gustav Mahler, which until then she had not really cared about. She began to edit his works. They said she actually made some pretty significant changes to one of his symphonies, rearranged how the movements were supposed to be played, and declared that that was the way he always had played it. And for most of the 20th century, that was how that symphony was played based on what she said.
What she did.
Yeah, and it took a while for them to figure out that she'd completely screwed it up. She burned all but one of her letters to him.
Yep.
So she was basically clearly editing out the reality of some of their relationship. And in the 1950s, she penned her autobiography called "And the Bridge is Love." This was after she had moved to New York and bought a small apartment on the Upper East Side.
Oh, so she left LA.
She did leave LA.
Okay.
She basically had a ghostwriter, as she told her.
Oh, yeah. Here's the Alma Mahler Werfel, widow of writer. So this is the, I guess it's the obit from 64. Yep. Died yesterday in her apartment at 120 East 73rd Street. She was 85.
Yeah. So she worked with a ghostwriter to put together her autobiography. And of course, she ended up falling out with several of these writers because they would criticize her as being anti-Semitic. She finally found one that could talked her into censoring her diaries due to the many anti-Semitic utterances in them. So her autobiography was published and was greatly sanitized. Oh, interestingly enough, Walter Gropius was still alive and was very angry by the representation of their earlier love affair. She really dragged some of her so-called friends and acquaintances through the mud in this autobiography, so they were not happy with her at all. When she died on December 11th, 1964, she had very explicit instructions about what was supposed to go down, including a photograph of her on her deathbed, which was taken by Trudy Fleischman. Her obituary was written by Friedrich Torberg, whose wife, Marietta, was the one who called her a grande dame and a cesspool. Mm-hmm. And this was the obituary. Whenever she was convinced by a person's talent, she left such person, often with an energy bordering on brutality, no further path open other than that of fulfillment. They were then under a duty in relation to themselves and to her and the world, and she experienced it as a personal affront if a gift which she had recognized or indeed promoted was not then generally acknowledged. Incidentally, this happened to only a few, and to them she remained affectingly loyal. Success bewitched her, but lack of success did not divert her. Her enthusiasm, her commitment, her ability to sacrifice herself knew no bounds. It must have been both a fascination and an incitement purely for the reason that there was no hint of uncritical idolization about her, because her powers of judgment refused to be clouded by anything. This is undoubtedly also the reason why so many creative men stuck with her. This was the place where their own productivity progressed and bore fruit. She had a way of arranging and directing with geometric inevitability, made her the figure of the center, and all were content with this, since this central figure stood firm and rather than herself placed the others center stage. So yeah, I guess, in a way, that was why they were attracted to her. She was beautiful, but she also had a way of promoting them and believing in them that a lot of people probably would not have had. And even though she was such a diva and could be overly dramatic, she did seem to put them front and center, was always encouraging them when she wasn't tearing them down with anti-Semitic slurs. So if you want to read more about her, it is recognized that the best biography on her life in terms of balance is a book called Malevolent Muse, The Life of Alma Mahler by Oliver Helms. It was published in 2015, and you can actually run across a couple of reviews in Chicago Tribune and the Times that review it and talk about how he does a good job of striking the balance of her very complex personality. Next time, I think we've decided to talk about Siri Maham, who was one of the first female interior designers in
very
the
exciting.
Early 20th century.
She liked shades of white.
She did like shades of white. We will learn all about her and her various liaisons next time around. Until then, make sure you are following us on Facebook and Instagram, where we try to post things when we have time. And if you want to get in touch with us, please send us a message via those two mediums. Make sure you're subscribed and please review us if you think of us favorably.
Maybe not after this episode.
No. Go and listen to
I thought the last one was good.
Yeah, the limps.
I had a lot more energy last time.
Yeah. The limp episode was funny. I actually was listening to it with the unedited version with my little brother, and it was enjoyable. Yes, he was sitting laughing the whole time. So,
aww.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah, he is cute. Not little anymore, though. I keep calling him little brother, and he's 6'3". So,
oh my!
Yeah, he can actually put his chin.
That's a tall boy
on top of my head now. Mm. Yeah, he is indeed. Anywho, until next time, ta-ta for now.
Good night.